compromise candidate, and he has no base. He really has no base. The way he deals is through peonage and patronage. You know, he will make you ambassador, he will make you minister, and you be nice to him, you work for him, because he has no base himself. So most of the Afghan government are working for either one or other kind of foreign agency. And I'll tell you something, I have been to the palace 3 times, not recently but earlier. And there were rings and rings of security forces. Most of them were American. And at one point it was interesting, they had a German Shepherd which sniffs, you know, for weapons and things. And this German Shepherd didn't understand Pashto or Farsi. The commands were in English. Does that tell you something? That the German Shepherd, which was, you know, looking for explosives in the palace, spoke English. He understood English only.
English only.
Which is to say, that is, I think if it were not for the Americans, you know, Karzai couldn't last for a month. He will be gone, and he will be gone in a horrible way. And you know, in fact, I can almost predict and say that I don't think he will die a natural death, no matter where he is, because this government has no legitimacy and has no credibility. It's corrupt, it's inept, it's illegitimate, it's criminal. You know, it's like a crime syndicate, and people despise the whole apparatus. And if you go to Afghanistan, there's very little that will show that there's a functioning government here, in terms of roads, schools, you know, clinics, security, peace, law and order. Nothing. What is done by private sector, and that's all drug money or you know, stolen money.
There's this book that I didn't get a chance to read. My friend loaned it to me, but he's like, Alex, read it. I didn't have the time, but what it did get into is what the military did here in America to the Native Americans, to their sexual genitalia, chopping it off and hanging people, the most horrific things.
Well,
I think the very best thing people can do for their government, our government, for the people of Afghanistan is to speak the truth loudly. Don't compromise within the system, because we have to heal the damage that's been done. This is that shortly, because I do believe in karma. And I can kind of feel in the air, Zaher, that there's something in my lifetime that is coming to this country because of what they did for me. And we're not talking about terrorism. We are not talking at all about suicide bombers. Now, we are not talking about Islam marching on the United States. There's something happening with the Chinese military. And what I'm seeing is the same signature patterns of them arming certain aspects of the Mujahideen before 9/11. I'm seeing directly all these military technology transfers. I'm seeing China maintain silence about 9/11. I'm seeing the Russians maintain their silence about, and I want to warn everyone about this Russia Today network, because I've been watching them. They don't have Arabs, truly, true Afghans on this network. They have white American conspiracy theorists. They're talking about everything that's wrong with America, but they don't get into, I'd like to hear from you, maybe some of the war crimes that Russia was involved in. They don't want to bring up that chapter. They don't want to bring up all these gangsters that are involved in this. So when I look at Afghanistan, I have learned from this situation that there is a new world order empire that is far larger than the Anglo-Saxon empire of the U.S. And these countries that act like they're against each other have worked together in Iraq and Afghanistan. We're talking about Russia, China, and the United States.
Zones of interest. Well, just to take China, for example, China has been helping Afghanistan, you know, building hospitals here and there, doing this and that. But more importantly, about a year ago, more than a year ago, China signed the biggest contract with the Afghan government ever. About copper mine. It's called the Ainak copper mine, which is about 30 miles from Kabul in Logar province. So they're working on excavating copper, which is the second largest copper mine in the world after the Anaconda in Chile. So the Chinese are up to here. And if you go to Afghanistan now, about half the products you see in the city, maybe more than half, are made in China. So the Chinese are making a lot of money out of this, while the Americans are doing the fighting. The Americans provide the security and safety. The Chinese are making the money and working on their excavation of the copper mine, for example. The Russians are going to be selling weapons and so forth to Afghanistan. So there's that going on, and as I said, I think part of the reason why the United States wants to maintain a military presence is to sort of roll back the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, because that can be a very powerful military force. China, Russia, you know.
We've been watching, we've shown clips from their drills together on the show.
Yes. As for this country, you know, there are many thoughtful Americans, you know, people who were born and raised here, were naturalized, but I hear it, I see it. The country seems to be falling apart, I think.
Some
you
of
know,
us
it's
from
like Rome,
the Middle East have different experiences with racism. How have yours been since 9/11?
Well, I have never been like told something nasty or been, say, rejected, you know, refused service. Really, I have had no indication of mistreatment.
Yeah,
I'm sure there was subtle, maybe if it was subtle. So even at the airports, I mean, just once or twice I was singled out, you know, to be searched more thoroughly. I have never really had, you know, any bad experience, but I am aware. I know people who have been taken away, and I know people who now can't go to mosque to pray.
Right.
You know, and I know people who are afraid here in this country, Americans, because the surveillance is quite vast.
Do you think there's something more in brief about the Portland 7? Do you think that was a fully legitimate threat, or do you think this whole thing was fabricated? Because I believe the situation with the Somalian youngster was fabricated.
He was set up. Yes, it was a setup. Well, same. It happens.
Now we know that we have to take care of our immediate homeland of Portland.
Yes.
Because you know what? The feds got their eyes on this city.
Yes.
And there's something about this city that they want. And they've got these mayors in their pocket.
Yes.
Mayor Sam Adams is not going to run next year.
Well, he decided not to.
Yeah.
I think it's very obvious that, I mean, my sense is, you know, I've lived here for about 40 years now in this country. You know, I've seen it change from a nice, decent, free, egalitarian, humane society to a very vicious place, to a quasi-police state.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question that there's surveillance. I mean, I assume that my emails, my correspondence, my telephone conversations might be listened to. I just assume that.
I as well.
But, you know, I am not breaking any laws and I don't care. But, but there's every indication that our telephone company cooperates with the
and there's every indication
intelligence.
This is not just about targeting Afghans in this war.
No,
they're targeting what they call
too.
white Al-Qaeda now.
Yes.
They say Jihad Jane. Have you heard of Jihad Jane?
Yeah,
Jihad Jane went with her Al-Qaeda boyfriend, and they went, what are they, you know, in the jungle gym there, they're training, and they're in the secret Afghan cave.
Yes. No,
why are they targeting a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman saying she's with Al-Qaeda? Unless they're coming for you and your daughters too. I don't know, I wonder.
Well, you know, I mean, life is becoming hard in this country, and there's a lot of dissatisfaction. You know, this is not a recession, and it's not over. We're in a depression. I know people who, for example, can't go to school, who have lost jobs, who have lost their homes, who are really in trouble, and they're very upset, you know, and they're mad, really mad. So, and this goes on, and then, you know, there's foreign pressures. I mean, if you look at Latin America, several of these countries have elected left-of-center presidents, Peru the most recent. So, in other words, I think for the ruling class in America, there are challenges within and without the United States, and they have to resort to all kinds of ways, whether it's scapegoating some, you know, people, calling them this and that, or whether it's scapegoating, you know, Americans or workers or unions or whatever, because the ruling class, you know, will maintain the status quo, and they will maintain their privileges. If that takes waging wars, so be it. You know, you have a mercenary army. We don't have a professional army, and we don't have the draft. And it's interesting, Alex, when you get on a plane in Dubai and you come to the United States, it's more than half of them are military people.
Right.
And when you look at them, none of these people even look like my students at Lewis and Clark College. They look like they're from some little town in Iowa, or they're mostly minorities.
Well,
so
I used to get very upset on the show in previous years about the police state and look at these things happening. I'm relaxing more because I'm starting to understand.
Well,
I'm starting to understand this truth. America can change us Americans at any moment that they want to. They could stop the wars. They could reverse a lot of harm that's been done. And I believe that there is a collective karma for the continent, this country, specifically America. So
well, it can destroy itself.
Yeah, it can, but you know, we can get overwhelmed sometimes by all the stuff going on. But living with a good, full, open heart is the best way to go about living in the future. With all this killing and deceptions, to reject those deceptions and lies. And
well, the vital signs, as they say, are not very good. Again, if you look at this country, our economy, our political system,
our diet. Which moves us to the last part of our conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's been a very great hour with you, but we were going to talk about food for the last segment.
Yeah, yeah.
And we don't have the best diet in this country. We have McDonald's and French fries and all types of things, but Afghan cuisine.
Yes.
This is what I've been really wanting. We have a picture up here.
Yes.
And see, we have so many carts in this town.
Yeah.
At one time, there was an Afghan restaurant on Hawthorne.
Yes.
But it's cool. Maybe you knew him.
Yeah.
We need an Afghan cart in this town. And
yes.
Maybe I'd open it.
And if you look at it, actually, for those who can afford it, the Afghan diet, it's very balanced.
Right.
It's excellent. But you know, the diet, unfortunately, we have some of these chains there now. So you get pizza, you get Kentucky Fried Chicken.
They're bringing them the Mickey D's. I heard about that at Starbucks.
Yes. So, well, you know, imperialism is not just limited to either the military or the money or the pipeline. It comes as a total package. So, you know, it comes with prostitution, with pornography, with films, with food, with junk food, you know, with fast food, with dress, you know, with manners, with values, with education, with the English language, and with the internet. I mean, imperialism moves sort of in packages.
It does.
And you see this in Afghanistan, unfortunately, now. And there is a wealthy class who eat very, very well, but the vast majority of the Afghans right now, you know, there are parts of the country, like in the central part, where there's no drinking water. They're experiencing some of the worst drought in memory. So the majority of the people are hungry, and more importantly, 60% of the Afghans are under 25. And you know, the Americans and the foreigners don't understand that. I keep telling them, this is a young country, these are young people, you better give them something to do, like education, employment, money, a future, a hope, etc. None of that was done. So you have 60% of the population, most of whom have no work, no money, and no future, no hope. Someday there will be an Afghan spring. And it will be because of this occupation, because the focus has been to simply you know, defeat, quote, the terrorists, you know, misnamed, but not work on development, for example, to develop the capacity or you know,
cultivate crops,
build factories or whatever. None of that. There's no development. There's no work being done to reconcile the different groups. So I'm afraid when there is the opportunity, there might be civil war, and there might be sort of an Afghan spring. You know, these young people have had it, and they're really angry. So the Afghan food is good. They may one day be able
to take back their own country, and in a way, after some period of chaos, I think things could resolve themselves. But I'm kind of suspicious that we may be going through the same thing in our own country. A period of a civil war, if there's some sort of a meltdown. NASA has many concerns, although we're ending the show now. This is a regular topic about solar flares. And what would happen to this empire if something were to come to Earth? Perhaps it's God's will, perhaps that's a matter of preference of our opinion. But there seems to be something that we as a species, who knows what it is, are about to walk into. And I think when that happens, the whole situation on Earth is going to change.
Well, Paulo Freire, my intellectual guru, said oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. So whether it's in America or Afghanistan or places in between, I think you can mislead, you can fool, you can manipulate, you can frighten, you can intimidate, you can hegemonize people for so long, but not forever. Something will happen here. Either I think the empire would collapse of its own weight, or there will be uprisings, you know, when people lose everything, can have nothing.
Instead of looking at billions of people on the Earth as a virus, perhaps billions have been called to Earth to witness what we're about to witness. And with that, we are now out of time. Thank you for watching Outside the Box. Thank you, Zaher, for being on the show tonight.
Thank you.
We're going to cover more information next week. I hope you learned some very important things tonight. Until next week, I'm Alex Hansen reminding you the path to the ultimate place of truth and place of power still lies within. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.